In order to aid in making these decisions that Kenneth discussed, it is important to also understand the decision tools and the concerns that are regarding autos currently. One of the ways and tools that we can use in order to make this decision is to recognize that cybersecurity requires fluid, multi-stakeholder interaction. To discuss this further, you can break it down into the three players that Kenneth discussed. The private entities have an incentive in order to try to increase competition, gain competitive advantage, and yet they miss the true cost-benefit analysis from the perspective of the consumer. What good is a vehicle that's hacked if it has all the latest gadgets? The next is regulatory and public bodies are very cumbersome. In addition to this, it's incredibly important to recognize that international bodies will often disagree on the standards, mostly due to the fact that it will impact the trade secrets, it will impact the competitive advantages that different countries will have. As a result, regulatory bodies seek to protect that. Lastly, the article mentioned specifically NHTSA had made noted gains over the last 5 years with concern of cybersecurity decision-making and regulation. However, it's very difficult to implement and very slow. The regulatory bodies are often significantly impacted by either the consumer or the private entities. The last is the consumers embody the reality that technology is not the only key. Other keys that are quoted in the article are social engineering, organizational behavior, as well as training. Another tool to help us make this decision is to recognize that cybersecurity is a public good with significant positive and negative externalities. A public good is excluded from rivalries. Just because my new car has security features that prohibit any sort of uploading or connectivity of a passive hacker simply watching my location, or an active hacker playing with the brakes, the navigation system, etc. That does not prohibit your vehicle from also being able to have secure technology implemented within it to protect you. These benefits can come to all without exclusion. Cybersecurity should also be a design objective. This is really critical to recognize that car makers are traditionally reactive. They're reactive in the sense of safety issues and recalls, etc., because it eats out their bottom line. It's also important to note that they will lead legal requirements, as is seen in the most recent years. The requirement for backup cameras to be in all new vehicles was led by 1 year by all auto manufacturers. However, in most of the history of the automakers, they are very reactive to certain regulation, to consumer demands, and to safety recalls. So now we've seen some of the decision factors, whether it's the level of stakeholder interaction, externalities, and the impact that cybersecurity being a public good has on this overall decision, and finally the necessity of proactivity within the design objectives. We've seen from Kenneth how the players, both the public, regulatory bodies, consumers, and private entities in the automakers also impact and weigh in on these decisions. So the last thing I'll leave you with is the three questions. Who is responsible for owning these vulnerabilities? Second, does this entity, which is responsible for owning the vulnerabilities, also need to be responsible for fixing the vulnerabilities? And lastly, how do we ensure proactivity in cybersecurity within the vehicle construct? Thank you so much. Kenneth and I really appreciate it and look forward to seeing all your comments. Of note, Sarah is actually in another group, so these two will be the only presentations. Thank you very much, and we look forward to your comments.